First of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question. You don't even say, hello, how are you?
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Sir, if you don't mind, I'd love to. We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
Excuse you, you're the one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
Okay, former President Trump taking questions at the National Association of Black Journalists just a short time ago. Harris Faulkner was on the stage. She was co-moderating that Q&A in Chicago. She, of course, is the anchor of the Faulkner Focus and the co-anchor of Outnumbered. Harris, welcome. It was a heated environment from the get-go up there. Give us your take on what happened from the very beginning and what we couldn't see behind the scenes.
Well, let me start there, because I think that's really important. What the nation has seen is this incredible buildup with journalists here reportedly upset because Donald Trump was coming. Some of them, and some of them we really hadn't heard from. So what I loved about what you couldn't see today was how much of that audience was enjoying the moment of hearing from a candidate that they might not always agree with. And that is the whole point. That is the growth of journalism, to be able to listen and question those things that you may not know about because you don't often talk to that person or those people. That was the goal here. So for all of that pushback, young journalists that I'm talking to after the event are saying, well, we're glad he's here. And look, you're always going to have a situation like we had today. It was very hard to hear on that dais because of the way the microphones were. They had a lot of technical issues going into this to make this happen. So the delay that there was out to the public that the former president was talking about had a lot to do with that. Now, it did get a little chippy because when a politician is interviewed, sometimes, Martha, they don't always answer the question that you ask. So the re-asks in this environment were very important. And so we got into some good topics, that are important, not just to black communities. And I say that plural because we're not all the same. We don't think the same. We vote different, that whole thing. And I love that representation in the room, too. Had a lot of young people in the audience today who want to be in the position that we three journalists were in, and that is interviewing the newsmakers. And we got that. Now, from Donald Trump, we got a lot of talk about the border. And look, if she becomes the Democratic presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, that is an issue that they will continue to hit her hard on, Republicans in general, and particularly this former president. I know she's trying to turn the tables and make it about the legislation that has not passed, blaming Republicans for that. But what about the porous border? And that's where he went. What's interesting is we now know she's going to do this particular venue, the National Association of Black Journalists. Going into today, that was not the case. It'll be remote. The president has said he will debate her if she becomes the nominee. So you have these two people now center stage. It's interesting to get one of them on that dais.
Indeed, it is. I want to play a little bit, Harris, a little montage of some of what happened up there and get your reaction and what the reaction of the crowd was, because it's a great point. At times it sounded like they were kind of cheering him on, and then at other times it sounded like they were surprised by what he was saying. So let's play this and get your thoughts on it.
We want people. I want people to come into our country, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. So when you say, what do I do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring interest rates down. I bring inflation way down so people can buy bacon again, so people can buy a ham sandwich again, so that people can go to a restaurant and afford it. Understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
All right, there's a bunch there, Harris, because we butted two sound bites together. But let's start with the second one first, the Abraham Lincoln comment. And we also played earlier his questions about whether or not Kamala Harris is Indian or black. Your thoughts on all of that?
All right, let's start with the order that you gave me. You know, just in terms of the former president answering questions, Martha, you and I have both interviewed him. It's an interesting journey that you go on, but you've got to keep pressing. And there was a little bit of contention on the dais about whether or not he could hear, and when he could hear, would he answer the question? I do feel like when it comes to the issues that he was talking about, what the question was that I had asked him was, with black communities feeling the pressure of high pricing now, what policy do you have that's going to go toward them particularly? You're here, you've come here. What's your message for black people who are young and in the audience and feeling this economy? So you heard a little bit of that in his first answer in that. And then with regard to what you were saying before, in terms of the audience shouting back and having some reaction to him, it was chippy at times, but for the most part they were laughing and they were getting kind of what they didn't have before this, and that was a conduit to a man that they see a lot on TV but don't know a lot about his policies. Kamala Harris and President Trump are going to be an interesting debate if and when that should happen.
So, you know, talk to me a little bit about his responses on J.D. Vance, because he was defending his vice presidential pick out there today, and one of the questioners talked about. She said, "I'm a single mom. I don't have children," I think she said, and he was pushing back. She was pushing back on the question of J.D. Vance and whether or not the president is happy with that pick. Your thoughts on how that played out, Harris?
Yeah, and I also followed up with that with, we're hearing it, no doubt you are, Mr. President. There's a lot of chatter around the early struggles and stumbles of J.D. Vance right out the gate. Why did you pick him? And to answer you on both those counts, whether it be, you know, about the women's statements, some of them that J.D. Vance has had, or just some of the other stumbles that he's got out, you know, had out of the gate. Diet Mountain Dew, racist. I know it was a joke. People are still kind of like, well, what was the joke? So he said he chose him because he thinks that, you know, where he is as a young man who had come from basically tough times and made his way through Ivy League school, the U.S. Marines, so on and so forth. He defended him, but we each hit him in different ways on why J.D. Vance. And finally, I hit him, Martha, with asking him, well, look, 2 weeks ago, right before the assassination attempt on his life, a few hours before that, we were sitting down at Mar-a-Lago. And I said, why would you choose him when the last thing you said to me before that event, quite prophetically, I might add, is that something bad could happen. So it matters who you choose. I said, is J.D. Vance ready on day one? He did not answer that question. He answered it around it, but he did not answer my question.
Yeah. Well, I know he was having a little bit of trouble hearing you at some points up there, and that was a bit of a challenge as well. Yeah. Harris, thank you 100%. Very much. Yeah, fascinating conversation, and great to have you on right after to discuss your experience up there and what it was like. And we look forward to seeing Kamala Harris, the vice president's Zoom conversation with the same group. So we'll be watching. Harris, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.